What's good in the whole YouTube? This is Crazy Samurai 71 here, bringing you guys another video. Today I'm bringing you guys a video on Lupinranger versus Patoranger. This episode is called Photos to Remember, and the episode overall was okay. It wasn't anything spectacular. The episode really was just kind of like a picture show, flashback kind of episode. Not a super important one overall, but it led to some things a little bit with the story. I mean, it wasn't like super important overall though. So really, it kind of caught people up who haven't been keeping up with this episode by going over a number of things. And I'll get into that right now. So the way the episode basically starts is that the Power Rangers are walking down a staircase. They're heading off because they're going to be celebrating a welcome party for Noelle, and the one that actually made the welcome party is Noelle himself. So he's actually doing it on his own to make his own welcome party, which is just a little bit weird, but it makes sense with his character and how he is, but it's still kind of weird. So anyway, what does end up happening is that suddenly they end up seeing some ganglers walking down the street, and what happens is that the Power Rangers end up heading off to deal with them. At the same time that that's happening, the Lupinrangers are in the area, and they see what's happening, and they decide to go and investigate and see the scene. They scope out what's happening, and then following this, we end up seeing the Power Rangers fight. But at one point, one of the ganglers we end up seeing has a safe on his head, and it's just a random porterman, you know, the basic foot soldier-like characters that we see in the show. But he has a safe on his head, and he has this huge hand, really big. And what happens is that he ends up putting his hand on top of Kichiro, and suddenly Kichiro ends up losing his memories. Photographs end up coming out of his head, and he eventually ends up falling to the ground, just sitting there. And what happens is that he only loses so much of his memories, and so what happens is that at that point, Goche and the Porterman end up retreating. So then, at that point, what ends up happening is that Tsukasa and Sukoya try to help Kichiro out. Kichiro remembers Tsukasa, but does not remember Sukoya. At the same time, we end up seeing all these photos, which gives them a clear indication of why certain things, why he forgets them, why he forgets Sukoya. He does remember Tsukasa, which means that his memories weren't completely wiped out. It only goes back so far, and what happens is that there's quite a few memories that he still has, but there's quite a few memories that he's lost. Specifically ones about the Lupinrangers, which at one point what happens is that Kairi and the others end up discovering one of the photos, which is the one where they have their masquerade outfits. They still, I believe, managed to find the one of the Lupinrangers first transforming, but all the other but a lot of the other photos they have, I mean, there's really 3 photos that they're missing, which we end up learning that when they head back to the base and bring back all the photos. Once at the base, what happens is that Carter isn't remembered, the boss isn't remembered either, because the only thing that he remembers is possibly him being in Hollywood movies or something like that, which isn't really even true, so he confuses him, and they try to do different things to kind of jog Kichiro's memory. Specifically, they talk about the Lupinrangers, and they explain the first time that they met them. They go through the whole bit of explaining what happened, and then eventually explaining how, you know, initially they didn't have the abilities to fight the ganglers, and then eventually they gained the same abilities that the Lupinrangers had, and now they were able to do more. But the thing was that Kichiro didn't really understand it all, but he resonated with the pictures that involved the Lupinrangers more than anything else. There were other things that were brought up in the episode, like later on, when Noelle ends up heading off to the Lupinrangers, we end up seeing the Lupinrangers looking at the picture of when they first became the picture of them with their masquerade outfits, and reminded them the first time that they became Lupinrangers, and so then it does a little bit of a flashback of that. And what happens is that Noelle explains that these photos are memories of Kichiro, and the only thing that may actually unlock his memories is if he sees you guys and he is able to remember you guys. So the thing is that the Lupinrangers don't really want to help him initially because they feel like, what is that going to do for us? Is that really going to be a beneficial factor? But at the same time, Noelle... the one thing that happens is that he doesn't remember Kichiro doesn't remember Noelle either, because Noelle is very, very recent, and so they end up doing a little bit of flashback about Noelle. And what happens is that, you know, obviously Noelle has both his police form and his thief form, and the thing is that he's able to take advantage of both because for the different situations. And so the thing is that he feels that the Lupinrangers will be able to help them out, and, you know, they have certain skill sets on both ends. The Lupinrangers and the Power Rangers will eventually work together. He believes that will happen. That is a strong belief of Noelle. And so the thing is that kind of is something that triggers them to kind of help out, even though initially they're really against it altogether. Now, there's also additional memories about Lupinrangers past, about like different funny moments dealing with where it was Tsukasa and Umika when they went to that haunted house and they had to work together. Toma and Sequoia having to be together at that dance class. And then there's also what happens is that the Power Rangers end up getting two photos. One being the one where they did the gender swap for the film studio, and then there was the one with all the cute moments from Sequoia. That's the one not from Sequoia, from Tsukasa. And so what happens is that I confused it for some reason. That was weird. And so then what happens is that. At the same time, the Power Rangers get informed that Kichiro ended up running off. What we do end up seeing as well is that the Ganglers end up heading back to the base. They realize that the Lupin collection item isn't at its full strength, and it can't make them lose all their memories, so that's a disappointment. At the same time, what happens is that Gochi, Degrani, Destra end up reminiscing about all their losses in battle against the Lupinrangers and the Power Rangers, and the different ways that they've fought them, whether it be in bases, whether it be in factories, and all sorts of different sites, and the ways that they've defeated them. At the same time, there's also mention with the Lupinrangers originally with Zamiko, and so I forgot to mention that already. But yes, all those things are brought up. Eventually, what does end up happening is that Kichiro tries to fight the Ganglers, doesn't work very well. Suddenly, the Lupinrangers do show up in their masquerade uniforms, and they do transform into the Lupinrangers, and they begin to fight the Ganglers. This leads to Kichiro's memories suddenly flowing back to him. They actually fly to him, and they go into his brain. He has these quick visions of moments, of events, of different things happening, and then he gets super angry as he recognizes the thieves, and he ends up transforming. At that point, he also ends up before this, the Lupinrangers quickly swoop in to get the Lupin collection item, which is an item that's based off of like the Go Busters weapon that was like the camera item from that from the season. It was like one of their main weapons. So they ended up getting that quickly, and then Kichiro ends up actually getting a new Kisatsu boost, which is one based on the Crane trigger machine. So he actually gets this new boost form, which is very, very cool, and he ends up using it on the Ganglers. And basically, after they defeat the Ganglers, there's no giant boss monster or whatever, so there's no big Gangler monster. Gochi doesn't really show up, and Good Striker does show up, and he actually reminisces about all the different forms he's taken with the Lupinrangers and the Power Rangers, going through all the forms, the transformations, the different dial fighters, and the trigger machines. And basically, he thinks he's really cool. He ends up even having a disguise of himself as this girl that thinks he's awesome. And basically what happens is that Sequoia and Tsukasa just rush right into him and knock Good Striker over. and basically they're just happy to know that Kichiro has his memories again. They ask him, and he says, "Yes, I do remember Sequoia and Tsukasa, and I do remember you, and I'm sorry that I put you in a difficult situation." And then what happens is that they have to go to Noelles Party finally. So Noelles Party, basically what happens is that we see them in different uniforms. The Patorangers are in gis, and so they're in different like Japanese uniforms. Same with the Lupinrangers. And what happens is that they end up enjoying food, they end up enjoying fireworks, and they just have a good time for their Japanese summer. And basically that's about it for that episode. There's even a moment where Kairi ends up looking over at Kichiro, and also there's a point where Noelle says, "Aren't you happy that you helped Kichiro regain his memories?" And he was like, it was just a coincidence that it happened. We took the Lupin collection item, and he just remembered who he was. That's all it was. And that's basically true, even though, you know, clearly they had to have more of a motive than just that. But that's his way of hiding the truth, if you get what I mean. So anyway, what does end up happening in the preview clip is that we do end up seeing that Lupin Red and Patoranger Ichigo are going to be doing a little bit of a trade, and there will be a new versus vehicle that'll be introduced, which will allow for the transformation for the what do you call it? Pat Kaiser Splash or the Kaiser Splash. Yeah, Pat Kaiser Splash to come in, because like the new Splash trigger machine should be introduced. I believe it is. I believe it's the trigger machine. So anyway, that will be introduced in the next episode. I'm looking forward to that a lot. And it's good to see a new versus vehicle introduced in episode 30. There are some recent images that were shown off for the for new stuff coming in the future. Like, for example, they showed that there is going to be an alternate combination for Good Cool Kaiser, which will feature some of the additional dial fighters and trigger machines. Like, we've seen the Cyclone and the Scissors and Blade dial fighters used in this alternate combination, which is kind of interesting. And there also will be the new power-up weapon that the Lupinrangers will use. So again, we'll have to wait and see, but all that stuff is very good and very interesting to see. So anyway, let's get started. So anyway, that's about it for me. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe. I'd love to know your guys' opinions about this episode overall. Did you enjoy it? What did you like about it? Leave your comments below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. So until then, guys, I'm Crazy Samurai 71, and goodbye, guys.